Hello, and welcome to Husky Huddle. I am your host, the best podcast host in the universe, Steve Cully. And with me, a very special guest, our host on Husky Hoops, to join us to talk a little UConn football again, the voice of the Huskies himself, the icon, and the best of the best, Mr. Joe D'Ambrosio, who is a great fact checker as well.
2 days in a row, Cully. This is going to test my blood pressure.
Test his blood pressure. And then below we have our legend, 2000 defensive player of the year for UConn. Played linebacker, played defensive end, tremendous leader all around, and a fantastic alumni, and who enjoyed my party very much Friday night, Mr. Jamar Wilkins. Hello, Jamar.
Hello, Steve. Hello, Joe. Great party. Way to put that together. Great way to start off a Saturday morning, 11 o'clock game with great people, with a lot of beverages on the bar. Great fellowshipping with former Huskies. So it was a great event. So great job reaching out to Castle and Barrel. It was a very fun way to start. Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising I got something right.
Wow, you went to Cask and Barrel? That was great.
Yeah. We
Good for you guys.
I never heard of it before. It was my cousin was the one that helped me set it up. He's a party. He used to be a party promoter in Boston, so he had a relationship with them, and we were able to get it going.
That's
and I think with the kid.
Let me say this before we get going. And this is with no disrespect meant to what the football team did, but we talked about it a little bit yesterday, Steve, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more today. The most impressive thing for me from the weekend was the turnout of football alumni.
Yeah.
No, we did. We did show out. We did show up.
I thought that was phenomenal.
Which we needed.
I thought the fan turnout was extraordinary. It was a perfect storm. It was Boston. It wasn't the total crap weather that you could have. I was just so impressed by the alumni turnout, all the pictures that our friend Lisa Lowry put up, and listening to the crowd in the game. I thought that was phenomenal.
I think
right, Jamar?
Yeah, no, I know what it felt like, Joe. It felt like a quarterfinal Big East game, right? It felt like that. It felt like, hey, we're playing Creighton, but UConn is deep, and North Carolina didn't attend well. It wasn't like a quarterfinal. It wasn't a semifinal game. It felt like a Big East quarterfinal game. You looked around, you just kind of Fenway is nice and tight, and it was a lot of Huskies fans.
Yeah,
and then
came across on TV.
Halfway through the first quarter, you look down, the whole bottom bowl was filled, and that was great. And then once we did something great, the roar from the crowd was super explosive. And the vibes are the vibes. When the vibes are good, the vibes are good. They weren't off. And
now the mission is to keep it going into next year.
Yeah. And what gave me a good feeling right outside of your party, Steve, is when you look down the way, you saw the UConn trailer.
Yes,
we have a nice
there.
UConn trailer. So, Joe, my story for Oklahoma was when we went down to the Fiesta Bowl. We're hanging out, we're watching the band. Oklahoma trailer show up, and it's an 84. It's 84 feet. It's got 36 wheels. It rolls in, and then another one rolls in, and I'm like, whoa! Look at that trailer.
Yeah.
And then we rolled in with one Atlas van line.
Are you serious?
Tunnel. Yeah.
But I think in honesty, they flew a lot of stuff down there.
Yeah. It's just.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was just the appearance. So to see a nice little trailer outside where it said bleed blue in the back, that kind of gave me like, oh, we're gonna win this game.
So my first question, and I'll go to Joe with this first. We spent the money to bring in Nick Evers, and we started him. He got hurt. He came back, and he never really got comfortable. He never really got into a groove. He always looked like he had happy feet. He looked like he didn't know where to go with the ball. Do you think we made a mistake? Keep trying to go back to him, and we should have just stuck with Joe the whole year as the quarterback? Because that's what I think about a lot.
It's all subjective, and
Yeah.
when I put the question on Twitter or on X in the second quarter of the game. I said, if Fagnano had been quarterback for the entire year, how much better would the record have been? And when I went back and looked at how much he played, and it might have been one game different. It didn't matter if Orlovsky was a quarter, or Stafford, or any of the great quarterbacks that we've had quarterbacked the game at Maryland. We weren't winning.
We weren't winning that one.
We weren't winning that game. Wake Forest, I think that was Everett's best game, right? So you can't be super critical of him there. Maybe the Duke game would have been different. But no, I think Steve and Jamar, in the era of NIL, I think if you spend money for a player, and I'm sure they spent decent money wooing Nick to come to UConn.
They did.
Then you almost feel obligated to give him a chance.
It's like the NFL.
It's like in baseball. If the Yankees spend $30 million on Paul Goldschmidt and he starts the season 1 for 22, you're not going to yank his ass out of the lineup. You're going to give him a chance.
Right.
I think they also believed that some of Everett's, or many of Everett's difficulties was because he was never healthy.
Right. No, I mean, he got hurt 3 times, three bad injuries with concussion. And I mean, I think his durability is suspect as well. I mean, based on his body frame, he's really lean. But I mean, the sliding thing, the way they teach it, the head first, I don't know if that's the best way to go, but that's what they were teaching, and that got him concussed. But man, like, I was there for the Temple game, and it was just painful to watch. I was there. It was funny. I was there for Georgia State, and I was in Burton's booth, and Nick was not playing particularly well, and I was pointing it out like, Jesus, who's he throwing to? Where's he looking? That ball was awful. And Burton looked over and he pinched me and he said, his agent's sitting right there. His agent was right next to him. While I'm saying, God, this guy sucks. What the hell? But Jamar, what did you think of the quarterback play overall from him?
Well, I like Joe because Joe's a 5th-year senior. Joe knows the guys, and that was But yes, you paid him. You brought him in. Obviously, Joe's right. You have to pay him and kind of see what you got. And obviously, we figured out how to use both of them their best during the bowl game with a running dimensional quarterback and kind of stretching the field. He just can't make the throws. He just can't.
Yeah, he just looked off.
Throws. And even Fagnano kind of has some issues, but you look at his success was when he was rolled out, stepped into the ball.
They put him on the move
and put it out. And having a 2 quarterback situation where, hey, stretch the field, get us past the 50. Evers, his job to come in to run the ball is to get us first downs and possibly change up dimension we kind of get in the red zone. So it's a great wrinkle to have. But now, Evers is the guy going forward. But you don't think we're going to actually out there looking for another quarterback? We just scored the most points since 2003. So we are scoring a lot of points. We do have a little bit of sexiness to come along. But always, I'm going to be very traditional. I want a UConn offense that has 2 running backs that are getting me over 1,000 yards. That's what I liked. And to see Mel Brown and Cam Edwards run that way was fantastic. So all our successful UConn teams have a different dimension of different running backs to spare because just weather related, we're never going to find that kid with the golden arm that's going to stretch it down the field. And I like the way our receivers mesh because I think a lot of times Evers, when I watched him throw, they just weren't on the same page. And
No.
Let me ask the two of you this question because I'm curious as ex-players and on different sides of the ball. your opinions. But do you think a 2-quarterback system can work?
No, I don't think it can. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any.
That's what I thought.
But also, too, if you have everything that you need. So if you're coming in, think about, so for instance, on the defensive side, what you said, as a outside linebacker, middle linebacker, defensive end, they come in and you look at the whole Justin Fields, Russell Wilson situation. Guess what? You got to spend another 2 hours of preparing for 8 plays that they may run. And that's just a wrinkle. Like, Tom O'Brien did something very weird. He had Hasselbeck, and then also St. Pierre would come in for the start of the quarter. And I thought it was cool because you developed the next guy, but it's just a different wrinkle. And what's the defensive strategy? What's their signs? What are they going to lean to? They're probably just going to run the ball or whatever. But having a 2-quarterback system, and the tough part is you got to prepare for it. So you got to go and say, all right, okay, now here's another wrinkle. Yes, he's going to run. He's going to run to right and left. There's going to be a zone. Is he going to throw the ball? So it kind of keeps you kind of on your toes a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm curious. Yeah. I mean, because I've always been of the mindset of like Steve, which scares me to say that, in that if you have 2 quarterbacks, then you don't have one. But I mean, we're in a different era of football.
Yes.
It's not. You guys aren't from the Stone Ages by any sense, but things have changed.
Tremendously.
Things have changed. How we look at. And we look at how we look at a lot of parts of the game.
Yeah. So, like, for even me as a fan, so I'm sitting back at the wide view watching Evers come in. We invest into this guy. I was very, it got me excited. Okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to run the ball? Is he going to throw it? Okay, he's going to roll.
They just ran the quarterback sweep with him. They didn't even trust him to throw.
Okay, good. A little wrinkle, a little adjustment to the game, a little flow. And I liked the way the offensive coordinator, Brock's the defensive coordinator. I liked the way he called the game. It was a nice.
Gordy Samus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not liked the offensive coordinator all year. I despised him. Just because of the run game, we depended so much. We ran, like, the base run was outside zone. And a lot of times we struggled with it because we ran it with 2 backs and we always ran it to the field. And it was, we'd get penetration and it would be blown up. Once he got it and he started running it a little bit more out of the pistol, I thought it was more successful. But I thought he didn't do enough nakeds. We could have done a lot of nakeds off of it. The problem was with Joe not being a threat to run, you got so much backside pursuit that would also blow up the play. I didn't think his play calling was great. I thought his play calling was better, much better in the bowl game. I thought his play calling was better as the season went along. And he's an O-line coach. So
that's to me, when you hire an O-line coach as your offensive coordinator, you're going to lean towards a running game.
Exactly. And we had a great running game. We had over 2,000 yards rushing on the year, which was great. And we had a 3-headed monster with Cam, Durrell, and Mel. And then, Victor Rosa didn't get as many carries, but he did in the bowl game. It's disappointing that we lost Durrell, but I think if we have Cam and Mel, we're going to be fine with those 2. And then they got a couple guys coming in who are pretty good. But that is our staple. But Jamar, I go back to, and I said this to Joe, and Joe argued with me on it. The way Coach Edsel ran it was, he was under center, power, counter, and, it was all coming at you, physical. He believed that playing on grass at Rentschler Field with the wind and everything, that you could not run a spread type of offense and have success. And Joe's response to me was, who was the quarterback for the Patriots back then? Tom Brady. Did Tom Brady have any trouble throwing in the elements? No, not really. So
but yeah, we weren't, maybe we have to find, kids who are catchers all their life and put them at quarterback. But no, we didn't have, only the best arm that we had was Orlovsky.
Right.
Thunder Dan.
He was a Connecticut kid.
Absolutely.
I look back, I talked to guys about it. Why were we good during that run from 03 to 10? It was because we played Pitt, West Virginia, Louisville, and maybe Rutgers. All four of them had to come to Rensselaer Stadium every 2 years.
Yeah.
We were able to reload, have the right players, and beat them. And even West Virginia. I remember when I went to the West Virginia game. We beat Pat White.
That was always a battle.
It was the weather. And just every time with Rhett Lanshay, congratulations for him doing very well. But he tried to run that 20-second offense. I'm like, that's not us.
No, that's not who we are.
Exactly.
No. That's not us. That grass gets mushy. Practice gets mushy. We just aren't that fast team. We want to get you physical and dirty, and play October, November football.
I will say this too, Jamal, and I don't disagree with anything you're saying. But when Lashley was there, they're in the AAC. They're not getting the top. They're not getting the better players when they were in that league. Recruiting was not. The recruiting was not as good as it's been since Moore's taken over, or what it was like in Randy version 1.
Yeah. And the first thing I do when I look at recruiting is, personally, I look at New Jersey. Second part, Florida.
We talked about that, yeah.
And Pennsylvania. And I'm looking for, running backs and linebackers and linemen from New Jersey and Pennsylvania, because that's where our Danny Lachey's, Latana Shay's, Uyo Sundays, all our great linebackers, Hargraves, Jamal Lundy, New Jersey area. We do well in Alabama. I love C.O. Moore. But just recruiting those areas. When you're not recruiting those areas, it's like, oh boy, we're in trouble. Also the DMV area, So we're missing those marks recruiting. It's like, But now looking at recruiting is different. It's like, what schools are they coming from? And what was their spring tape 2 years ago? And I think the tough part with your first question you asked about Evers, it's hard to get this right. It's hard to see why a third string quarterback from Wisconsin is a third string quarterback.
Well, you know what, Jamar, you're preaching to the choir, because one thing I said to people, and again, this is not to demean the kid, but after you watched him a little bit, you weren't surprised he was third string in the P4 schools.
Yeah. And the same thing with Daquan Robinson, right? We had him last year as a quarterback. He was a third stringer at Penn State, had that great first game against Utah State, and then, just couldn't kind of get it going. So there's a reason why these kids are at a certain level. And how do you do the deep dive to recruit the right people in such a tight window? Because I think the window starts now.
The other thing people think too, and I know you guys don't,
very tight,
but the other thing people think too is, well, if even if they didn't play at a P4 school, they can come here and play. No, that's not. No, that's not accurate.
No, I spoke to Steve about this too. I think we lost to Holy Cross, and I'm not sure what year that was.
Well, that was Randy's last.
That was when Randolph got fired.
And that was
2020.
They had fourth and fifth year guys. They had
that was a team I coached. Yeah,
I want those kids in a weird way.
It was a team that I coached. Yeah,
I kind of want. I think did Pagano come from Maine?
He came from Maine. Yeah.
Hey, give me a 20-year-old kid who's a sophomore, or 21 that's a sophomore, junior, that we can take 2 or 3 years with, if that's the recruiting process. Because I just want a certain maturity out of that kid that we can kind of grow and we can keep. First, the 1 year renegade, the 1-2 year guys in the take. Because I think what Stores is, you don't really get into your groove until your third year.
Well, that's what I always said about Coach Edsel. I always thought he did a great job developing players.
Awesome job.
Because we never got the 4-star recruits, the 3-star recruits. He'd take 1- and 2-star recruits, and he'd have them starting by their redshirt sophomore year.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at the class after me.
You know what, Steve? You just said it. You just said an interesting word. Redshirt. How many kids? How many freshmen redshirt now?
I have no idea how many he redshirted. Randy redshirted everyone.
Joe, I'm a high school football official. Freshmen are playing varsity football at these schools because they kind of have to, so they don't lose them.
Well, and you know what? That's the other thing with the portal, where it's too easy for kids who don't play to just say, oh, screw it, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then they go to a third school after that. And I've told Steve this 100 times, and I'll tell you, if you transfer twice, if you transfer once, that's fine. If you transfer twice, you got to sit out a year before you go to your third school.
Or even absolutely. And know what? That'll be good for you. That'll be good for you.
No, but they'll never do that because somebody will sue. And the NCAA, loses lawsuits, like DePaul loses in basketball to UConn.
Yeah. But I just think the mindset of the kid is different.
Yes.
You go to school, you find your friends, you love it, you go through the experience. And, I actually brought this question up yesterday. And it might be a little bit new, a little kind of controversial, but hungriest dog hunts best. That's one of my quote, right? But if you got $1 million of NIL money in your bank account, how hungry are you?
Well, if you're Shedeur Sanders and you're driving around in a Rolls Royce,
even $50,000, how hungry are you now?
Right.
So we got 3 Midwestern teams in the Final Four versus the Southern teams. So now is NIL taking that bite out of those hungry dogs down south in Alabama and Georgia and those SEC schools because they're getting paid now. So now they always were getting paid, but now it's just kind of out there. It's open. It's kind of, and also what cracked me up is a kid that they took from Arizona who's playing basketball for Indiana. He got $2 million and he gained 20 pounds. So those are different situations with NIL. It's changing the dynamic. It's kind of ruined the student athlete. You got to.
Well, you're not a student athlete.
What drives you, or amateurism?
You're a pro basically now.
Right.
Yeah.
What drives you now is the money. I know kids already are coming and wanting raises for their NIL deals that we have. And that's the problem I think we're going to have until we get into a conference, because financially we're never going to be at the level to pay these kids enough to get that type of talent. So
but
that's
again,
why,
Steve, as I told you yesterday, you get in a conference, you're not getting that big TV money right away.
No, you're not. You're not. I agree with you there. You're not.
They keep you on a leash
for
until they're ready
years.
to give you that money.
Oh, correct. Man. Now, Joe, how do you feel? Because I remember 1999, I think it was like a late February, Miami came and beat the UConn team. And now, how about these players, the audacity of these players trying to sue Leonard Hamilton for NIL money?
That Florida State. Look at the kid who went to where did he go to play quarterback? Went to play quarterback.
UNLV?
Yeah, went to UNLV.
Oh, he was the Holy Cross guy.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, by the way, thanks for joining us.
Hey, I was just on with the tight ends coach from URI.
Okay.
Yeah. That was interesting. So you're really great, really great. We could use him on our staff eventually.
But like I was saying before,
right.
Shu came on. The kid went to UNLV. He didn't play, and he bailed after one game.
3 games.
3 games, whatever it was.
Yeah, but you're right, and I can't remember who it was, but Dave mentioned this. You thought it was all a conspiracy where some SEC team came in and offered him a big NIL deal if he were to leave UNLV, and that's why he quit. And it was Matthew Solka, I think his name was.
Has he wound up anywhere yet?
I do not know if he is anywhere yet. We have to check that out.
Let me ask you this: as coaches, you two guys who have been coaches, would you take a kid like that?
No, there's no loyalty. I recruited him. I mean, I know his family. I was at Holy Cross when he was there. Well, he was a great kid.
I think that Saluka was supposed to be a great kid. Saluka was supposed to be a great kid.
He was. He led Holy Cross to the FCS championship, I believe.
I think what you have now in the transfer portal era is you just have to come to grips to the fact that you got to make sure you investigate the kids you bring in. because the reality is they're going to leave and you're going to be bringing guys in. That's the reality. But you got to make sure that that at least they're a cultural fit with you, not just their ability to do things, but they're a cultural fit. And UConn is different than, I don't know, UCLA, right? So what might be a good fit as a transfer portal person for UCLA may not be a good fit when they come to UConn and they're in stores and it's a college town and it's cold, right? So those are important things because I think that's the difference maker and what you get out of some of these guys, right? Like they come in there, they're in there temporarily in a lot of cases. A couple of years they might be with you. And I'm not talking about the freshmen that come in, but I'm saying the guys that you might get in as transfer in as sophomores or as juniors or something like that. And they're with you temporarily, and you want to make sure that when you're bringing them in, it's going to be exactly what they think it's going to be, because then you're going to be able to get, and I'm not just talking about the environment of town and all that kind of stuff, but coaching wise, how you guys coach, because then you get in a guy that will be able to come in and give you everything you have, because the last thing you want to do, and we've done it already, although we've kind of been able to get lucky that we haven't had real issue with it yet. But last thing you want to do is bring in a guy and it doesn't work out the way that they thought it would, because that can take away 2, 3, 4, 5 guys from coming to you the next time, or you can lose guys on your roster because of it, right? I'm friends with him. You know what I'm saying? His experience was bad.
I'm not coming. Yeah.
The group chat, like the text group chat, could be your biggest ally.
Yeah.
Could be your biggest ally or the most dangerous thing there is. The texting group chat. Okay. And as high school coaches, this, right? These guys get in a group chat and they're all mad at you about something. You better address it. Well, in college, I mean, these are grown men. They get on the group chat and start discussing who got what money. You got this money. I was Now UConn's been really good with this so far. We've been great with it. We have Burton, who's been
Mike's never missed a payment. Yep.
Right. But my point is that they get on that group chat, and that's how something like that happens to Leonard Hamilton.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. He promised you this. He promised you that. I mean, that's how it happens, and it happens like this. That's the crazy part. It happens.
So I don't understand this. Can you explain to me the Leonard Hamilton thing? What happened?
Players claim that he did not come through on his payments of the money that he owed them, and it's a significant amount of money that is claimed too. It's like 1.5 million in total amount
that was promised that he didn't pay.
Yeah.
Jesus. Wow.
None of us know.
Do you think we're ever going to come to a salary cap when it comes to
think
NIL?
they need one, but I don't think there's any way to get one right now. I don't think there's any way to put
employee. The legal issue is becoming employees. These are 1099 deals right now. Like, this is not,
You're right.
I paid Jamar $100,000 from my company. Okay. But he doesn't work for my company. He has to file 1099, take out his own taxes, draw expenses off of it, whatever, in order to be able to put that in. If you put a cap on it, you're basically, and there may be a way around it. I don't know. But what I've been told is that part of the issue is you start putting a cap on it, and they're saying, hey, these are employees of your company, whatever that is, whether it's the NIL company or UConn, I don't know. But and then now there's all kinds of other issues associated with that.
Really? So if they put like a $5 million cap on it, you're saying that would cause more problems than not having.
Plus, you're gonna have collective bargaining. Okay, so you're gonna have collective bargaining at that point, right? You put a cap on things, you're gonna have to have collective bargaining. You're gonna have to have some level of unionization, because otherwise, why are you putting a cap on my money? I haven't negotiated.
No, Shu, I don't. I mean, if the NCAA said to schools, you can only spend $10 million on your players
for NIL.
For NIL.
Then Ohio State sues.
That's what I would
Ohio
want.
State will sue them immediately.
What's that?
Ohio State would sue them immediately, or one of the schools would sue them immediately. Say, how are you going to put a cap on our amount?
Yeah,
but also
because
you put a cap on the amount. It has to be
collectively bargained. So now, if all the teams, let's say, I don't know, let's say the Big Ten as a group got together and said,
we're gonna.
And said, listen, we want to have a cap. They agree. This is what the cap is. We agree to this amount. We get our ducks in a row legally. If you want to be part of the Big Ten under our parameters, this is what our cap is. But the NCAA would have to have all its members, which is a large amount of people, which I think is part of the issue, agree to it. That's the whole mess of it. Like, think about it. The NFL is 32. Was it 32 teams? I think.
Yeah.
32 teams. All owners that are franchisees, like McDonald's, franchisees of the NFL. They own franchises of the NFL. None of the college programs are franchise. Same thing as in baseball.
No, they're not.
They're not franchisees of the NCAA. They're independent institutions.
Right. Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it would have to be something where they all agree. It is. I mean, I don't know how many institutions there are, but I could imagine it would be very difficult to get them to agree on it.
Yeah, there's like 132 Division I FBS schools, I think.
Yeah, but that's Steve. They're at all different levels.
Yeah,
Troy
right.
State's not paying what Alabama is paying.
No.
I got a question for Jamar to get off this for a second. Jamar, one thing we've talked about in basketball, when you're recruiting a kid now, you're not dealing with the high school coach. You're dealing with his agent. You're dealing with his AAU coach, all that crap. Are we going to start seeing the same thing, or have we started to see the same thing in college football?
I think not calling the high school coach is the biggest mistake that you can possibly make. Like, okay, you have an agent, but you got to go talk to the high school coach,
right,
and see who this kid is, what's the content of his character, and hey, send me some transcripts, anything that you can say, and do a deeper diver into the kids, because hey, who you are at 16, 17 is kind of who you are, but eventually you'll mature. But that's when your foundation's set. So it's still good to watch, local high school kids get recruited and kind of go at the process the right way. What I always love Schuman's tips that he puts on LinkedIn and Facebook about how to get recruited, how to do the things the right way with your image, your social media image, and all those different things. But when you get an agent involved, all that stuff kind of gets wiped away, and that's the one person who's your mouthpiece.
Right.
And this isn't the most genuine person because the agent found you a couple years ago where your coach developed you. Your high school. So it's just interesting to see people kind of bypass that real due diligence era with actually recruiting.
Part of it, Jamar, too, is the high school coaches are not equipped to handle this era.
They don't want to either.
Now, like where you are in Bergen County, okay, and obviously you grew up in Hudson County. I grew up in Bergen County, where you're living now, right? Bergen Catholic.
Well, you got older. You didn't grow up. You got older.
None of us did. That's why we're here talking about college football.
That's right. There's no doubt about it. But Bergen Catholic, DePaul, all the big programs right around you. Don Bosco, all those programs right in where you're living. Okay, those guys have a very, very high level player that they have a better level of control over the situation. They do have relationships with agents, but they kind of advise their guys to work with guys that they kind of have a relationship with. Where you live now, the high school, which is a powerhouse high school public school program, small school program, Hasbrook Heights, that high school coach, if he has a player like that, is not going to have the resources to be able to handle it in the same way. Now, he will be able to advise him, obviously, everything to do with football, but but that's going to be a much more difficult process for let's say a public school coach, right? And that's kind of unique to New Jersey, but all over the country, most coaches are probably overwhelmed in high school from that aspect, and they're not equipped to it. And
they're teachers.
Yeah, well, Bergen Catholic will have a guy that's in charge of recruiting, and so will DePaul, right? But Hasbrook Heights is the head coach is in charge of recruiting, right? So that's who's in charge of recruiting at the public school, and now he's a teacher, teaching classes, coaching. He's got a player guys are coming into, and he's got to manage all that, and that's why they do get bypassed because they feel like they can kind of jump over it in the recruiting process standpoint. And the college coaches bypass those guys. That's the biggest issue. With college coaches bypass the high school coaches. They don't care.
They don't go through them.
You think they don't care because it's not. Is it lazy recruiting?
They know better.
Well, they don't have to.
Before it's just like, hey, I gotta know the depths of this kid. I got to understand how he's wired, or no, he's just come to play football. He's got decent grades. He checks these boxes that we're looking for right now. Move on, because, college recruiting, college coaching is 80% recruiting. So, hey, let me just take that time away of just kind of rolling with a simple template of what I'm looking for, check the box, pass it over, and hope for the best, and also have an ego saying, oh, we'll coach this kid up. We'll make this third string quarterback, a 3,000-yard passer at UConn.
Well, before, you couldn't have contact with the players until they were juniors. Now all that's out the window. Now you can contact players when they're freshmen. So I think that's the main reason why the recruiting rules were completely different. You couldn't text. You couldn't do anything. Now
they still can't text a high school freshman. They can't. They have to go to. They have to go to
right.
The parent.
The sophomores, though, they can.
No, it's not till their junior year. So.
Oh, okay.
So the issue is they have to go to. That's probably something that the NCAA, even though it'll make more chaos on the back end of this, but the bottom line is that by limiting it, and they're all at any like top tier high school recruit probably is getting recruited for the most part by the time they're a sophomore, right?
Yes.
And
earlier
doesn't mean they won't be a Division I recruit, but I'm saying the top tier kid, like Bryce Underwood, who's going to Michigan, those kind of, people knew about him for a long time. So those kids, the truth is it'd be better for the high school coach if they were able to have a level of communication, because the parents don't like people going to the high school coach to ask questions. Okay. And there's a multitude of reasons with that. Number one, that other than states like Texas, and there's some states, and the Bergen County coaches who have big time programs, a lot of those guys aren't full-time coaches.
Exactly.
So they're not able to be accessible all the time, and they want to be able to have a coach, if they're a high-level recruit, that's going to be accessible to them all the time. And they'd rather talk to the coach directly, the parents. That's really the truth of it now. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I mean, it's probably a lot more difficult for college coaches, which is probably why they like the transfer players better. They're already men. Like, they've already established who they are and who they aren't as a player. Even if you go like a kid moving up from SES to Division I, like this kid goes and throws for 3,000 yards as a sophomore at North Dakota State. You know who that guy is. You could call. Listen, if he decides that he's going to go into transfer portal, you probably could call the college coach and ask about him. I mean, Jim Moore is doing it right now on Twitter. I don't know if you're following Jim. Jim Moore might be the most interesting follow on Twitter right now in college football coaching. Every player that has jumped in the portal, that he has a relationship with, that he likes, he tells them about them on Twitter and says, "You have a question, call me." No coach is doing that. Nobody in the country is doing
And also, too, I think, I think that's what comes with Connecticut, right? we're rooting for Connecticut, but we're always a first-class program. We always treat our athletes very well. A lot of other schools, you get hurt, they don't renew your scholarship. When I was there, we never kicked anyone out the door. Everyone kind of stayed. If you left, you left. That's your kind of thing. I always think they always treated Connecticut as a first-class program. And I see something like, hey, he wanted to go to Washington State, and Washington State paid him money or whatever. Why the hell do you want to go to Pullman, Washington? Why?
Yeah.
Even as an experience, yes, okay, we play 30 minutes outside of campus. You know what? UConn's humming right now. It's a fun school. It's just the vibes are good.
Experience. Yes.
They're treating you well. You want to go to Pullman? And I think one thing that we have to sell our kids is we'll give you a pro shot. You're not going to win that Fiesta Bowl. But you know what? We turn out a lot of pros if you stick to the schedule, stick to the script, stay here for 3 years, do 2 summers in stores.
Absolutely.
We might make you a pro because every year we're getting 2 kids drafted. So I think that's the approach you have to make. But going back to what you said, Dave, it's just like, what's that next level of investigation before we hand this kid over a check? How do we know that body is solid? He's not injury prone, didn't do anything nefarious. We can trust this kid. And I think that's the only thing. How can we trust a kid like Nick Evers? Here you go. We just gave you some money. Here's the keys to the UConn 2000 decade, because this decade, this is what we got. This season right now makes or break us on who we are. How can we trust you to give him keys? What's the best investigation someone like Burton or the NIL can do to say this is the right fit for us?
Yeah.
I think what Moore is doing is so contrarian, and by the way, living on his principles too. At the same, basically, he's telling everyone do the right thing for your players. Period. Okay, if your player wants to transfer, I'm gonna make sure it's the right. I wish him the best and put him in a good position. If we're going to recruit transfers, for example, or high school kids, we're going to make sure it's the right person. We want you to be as supportive as we're going to be if our players leave us, right? That part of the approach is really interesting. I'm curious to see, he's kind of out in the wind on it. I like it, by the way. I'm a contrarian by nature, so I like the approach of he's setting his own standard. He's setting what he believes is the right way to do things. And he's putting it out there because he wasn't overly active on social media until this whole thing came out. Obviously, people are contacting.
Well, but you know what? Wait a minute. Hold on here.
He was pissed.
Most coaches, they have somebody in their sports information staff do their social media.
But you think that this stuff is his social media staff? I don't know. You got to read these tweets.
I said most coaches.
And I would say probably up until I would agree with you. Probably up until he got fuming after, around the.
Right.
I think he kind of was like, "Let me get on here. This is where the players live."
Yeah.
Let me start having that conversation. And I think it's fascinating to me because I think he he kind of reminds me now of the Indiana coach. The Indiana coach is very forthright, self-confident, has what he believes are his values, that are important for the program. And he kind of, he sticks to that approach. It's really, really an interesting thing that I think he's doing. I think players love it. And it's one of those things that it's kind of, I would have never thought this would be the case, but kind of gives them an ease of mind that they could just go be part of the program. And if, oh, by the way, they don't want to be part of the program, whatever the reason is, that they're not going to be you can't transfer, you can't do this, you can't. I'm sure he's having a conversation with them. What's the issue? Why do you want to transfer? What is the reasoning? And getting a whole background instead of them just leaving. Okay, you want to go to transfer portal? No problem. Can you go through what your reasoning is with me?
The exit interview,
Yeah.
yeah.
But also, and it's important, Dave, because I think the number one thing you sell in life, with NUC and everything that you do as a coach, you sell trust. And I think that's what he is doing right now. He came out, you won very bombastically. We won the Fenway Bowl. We kind of beat a downtrodden UNC team or ACC. But you know what? No, I don't care about their record being 6-7. They're an ACC team. And the ACC team has been sticking it to us for 25 years.
Well, but Jamar, right? they were. Yes, I agree with you. But let's be honest here. That's a team that didn't want to be at Fenway Park.
No.
They were missing a lot of. They were missing key players.
Yeah, they didn't play.
Knew they were going into a hostile environment. They weren't well prepared. They said that on the broadcast. Mark Herzlich said that on the broadcast. You never hear broadcasters say that about teams. And Mark Herzlich, who's doing the color with Chris Cotter that day, came out and said they weren't very well prepared. So I don't want to rain on the parade, but it's not like they beat a prime Florida State.
No, absolutely not. And
the question is, do recruits care? I don't think recruits care. I really don't. Like, just if you think about the 18-year-old kid or the 19-year-old kid or the 20-year-old kid and how they think, like, I don't think they care. I think they see nine wins. I think they see me as an older person, I care because I'm thinking, how high can we go? Are we really that good? Like, I give a shit about all those kind of things, right? I don't think kids care.
No, I think you're right.
I think kids care about, is this program going in the right direction?
Right.
Like, one of the things with Notre Dame, right, which was the biggest knock on Notre Dame was, they play an independent schedule.
Correct.
They don't have the linemen to match up with Georgia. And that was all true when all the SEC teams had the first best linebacker, the second best linebacker, the third best linebacker, and the fourth best linebacker in the country, all on the same team. But with NIL and the transfer portal, they can only probably keep the first and second guy because third and fourth, they're gone. And those guys are gone. And you know what? And you can pay players. So to Notre Dame, which is a high academic school, they're probably the first super high academic school to say, you know what? I'll pay whatever I got to pay to keep getting that best quarterback.
They want to win. Yeah, they want to win.
They have Riley Leonard this year from Duke, right? He's going to be a cultural fit. He played at Duke. He's going to be a cultural fit with Notre Dame. They had before that, they had the guy with the long hair who's in the pros now, who was at North Carolina.
Hartman,
who was Wake Forest. I'm sorry, not North Carolina. Wake Forest the year before, right? Wake Forest, high academic school. We bring in Hartman for a year. Boom. Great results. Great results with Riley Leonard. You'll see them do it every year. That's why they're interested in Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, right?
Well, Arch is in the portal, like you said.
Top tier individual. Same reason that North Carolina is interested in Arch Manning, right? Top in their mind, top tier individual. A good fit for our institution, right? And I think more is following. And I think now the group. It's funny because the group of five is significantly weaker than
they want to do their own playoff now.
Right.
I think it's crazy.
And we have to get into a conference. We have to get into a conference, but what kind of changed my mind about the Notre Dame game is that, if you can create your own schedule until you get in that big conference, until you can get into that big conference, you definitely don't want to be in any of these other crappy conferences. The Big South, the MAC. You don't want to. I mean, those are death knells. UMass going in there. I thought, maybe that's good for UMass.
UMass going into the MAC.
To their program. That's the end of UMass's program because they're stuck in purgatory forever. Stuck in purgatory.
They were kicked out of the MAC and then they go running back to them.
You're in MAC. You're stuck in purgatory as a football program. Okay.
You're only going to go
the FAA comes up with a cap and gets everybody to agree to that.
But Jamar, the one thing that a lot of the guys asked me would Bleeding Blue, for fundraising, doing more events like that, like we had Friday night. Do you think something like that would be helpful or possible to raise more money? Because that's what a couple guys were asking me about. It's like,
I think because
to
any
do-
type of successful entrepreneur, and Dave, look at what Dave did. You got to connect people with connect people and keep connecting people. You got to keep beating the bush and got to keep connecting people with the right people to find the right match to kind of get along. We're a hot school to root for. If you have someone who likes UConn, or he's like, when I went to the bell ringing ceremony, right, for the basketball team, I was probably one of the few UConn grads that was there, donors. These are all people from Hartford, from the area, from New York that just love UConn. So, and obviously basketball has it. They won the 2 national championships. They can wheel in any type of money they want. But for football, you kind of have to continually kind of push the envelope. Like Tommy Collins is a connector, Mike Burton's a connector, meeting Mark D'Amelio, everything that he's doing with basketball, now football, he's a connector. So you just got to keep doing those events that connect it, because you can't rely on the alumni program. They're not funded well.
No,
the events they try to run kind of aren't hitting the mark, but it's doing something very exclusive, something very different around the Big East basketball tournament, and then continue stuff over for the golf outing. You have contributed so much by bringing this whole thing to life, allowing people to tell that story, and everyone has a story with football. Speak what Joe mentioned. Joe mentioned the alumni base. I'm sitting at the thing. I'm looking up to my left. There's Dan Ryan. There's Andre Dixon. I'm watching those guys who are 10 years younger than me wear their Connecticut honor wear badge. And I look up, I'm like, yo, those guys beat Notre Dame. So, and they can tell that story. They can walk to someone who has a pocket full of change and said, hey, tell us about November 21st, 2009, when you guys beat Notre Dame. And they can tell that whole story. And that, okay, hey, let's bring that back somehow. So, finding what UConn has done over the past 2 years with the NIL, it kind of reignited us a little bit, because, hey, we got to play this game that we can't rely as a traditional superpower, because we've always been chasing that traditional, how do we get here? How do we get here? Now we got there, and all of a sudden the 2010s happen. We kind of fall off a cliff. Now we have to raise money. And I kind of joke, like, hey, I'm good for a parking ticket. I'm good for a mishap. I don't have tons of money to kind of donate, but I'm into the cost to help, really, really revitalize the program. And there's stories behind the program where people can kind of say certain things. And now I know CO Moore's story. I know, guys I don't exactly know. I know their story, but this connects them to the next future, the next batch, and also keeping our culture. And one thing I realized 2010, when we just weren't good, guess who stole our football culture? The baseball team. They were the guys who were kind of fun, flying around, having a great time. And that's who we are as a university, where there's a certain standard. We're not dirty. We're not filthy. You look at certain coaches now at NIL. Here's your biggest adversity. Dabo. Do you look at Dabo as the same football coach you do now with the NIL? Do you look at, Saban Saban ran from it, and look at his program. So if Mora is going to kind of contract, stay with us and be on the up and up and be very candid and outright, I love that approach, because you got to be contrarian. Look at the Arizona State coach. Look at the Indiana coach. These contrarian guys are being more realistic. I know you guys like kind of playing the politics too. Look at the guys who are very genuine and open and honest and saying, hey, I'm doing it my way, versus stubborn ones say, okay, this is my way, the highway. Leonard Hamilton shouldn't be getting sued by his players. A booster should be. Some director of personnel, an assistant coach should be. Leonard Hamilton's getting sued by these players. How did that happen? That's Florida State's mismanagement. That's embarrassing that Leonard Hamilton, who's been coaching so long, who developed so many pros, had great seasons as a head coach, is even in the lawsuit. You got to have a fall guy. A Book Richardson needs to be the fall guy, or something like that.
Yeah,
even though your players may be there for the short run, you can't have short run thinking in your approach to a program, because if you do that, you're going to end up running into some of these issues. And I don't even know if it's true or not with Leonard Hamilton. I have no idea. But that's an important thing, because you're going to see, and I only because I talked to so many of these college coaches just from interviewing them, and high school coaches from interviewing them. You could see, man, the difference. The guys who are the guys who are trying to approach things the right way are going to have a better chance of success in this. And the guys who are, just using everyone truly, because you could show your cards that you're using them as a piece of meat. You could show your cards that you're just paying them. That's the only reason why they're there. You could show your cards from that standpoint. And look, Florida State's a great example of this, in my opinion. I don't know if this has anything to do with it or not, but one year they're undefeated. The next year they lost every game but one.
They were awful.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea whether they're doing it the right way or wrong. I don't know. I'm not privy to that information. But like, that is not how you want your program to live. You know what I mean? That's a hard way to live in your coaching career. And if you go in with short-term fixes and you don't know what that does for your team, like a group of guys come from listen, we'll find out pretty quickly, Colorado, if Deion Sanders decides to stay or not.
He's got a good class coming in, yeah.
Yeah, I thought the same thing about Colorado. Just the socioeconomic of that organization for the long season, for July, August, September, October, and then them to lay an egg in that bowl game was.
They
can't even take that kid, serious as a top.
Well, you know why they laid it.
They packed it in.
Coming out, they've spent so much money on NIL. Okay, for a lot of their star players, they didn't have a ton of money for the bowl game. They actually had a tight budget going to the bowl game. And the group that actually had more to be able to spend on their players to make sure they were more accommodated was actually BYU.
Wow.
So a lot of the players in Colorado were upset. And I'm not talking about Shador or Shiloh.
Right. Overall.
I don't think that's the case there, because they have plenty of money. I'm talking about your left guard. Your right guard, your D tackle, right, who is not getting the level of money that those guys are getting. And now they're like, wait a minute, like, why are we staying here? Why is this, they were on a tighter budget than BYU was. BYU had a much bigger budget for their team for the bowl game. And that goes to the philosophy of, like, if you're giving every dollar to a few guys, what is the ramification?
You get top heavy.
They wanted that Big 12 champion.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that in the old days, to go to a bowl game was a thrill, was a privilege. You were excited.
Huge.
Now,
oh my God!
Now it's like, unless it's the playoffs.
Yeah,
it's like, man, maybe I'll play.
Yeah, they pull out. Yeah,
I mean, I can't imagine any of you three guys, if you had the opportunity, would have opted out of a bowl game.
I would have, Joe, if I was going to be a first-round draft pick.
Why? Because you were going to sweep the stadium?
Joe, I got to ask you, if you look at our schedule for next year, we've gotten away from playing the bigger schools. Like, we were playing Michigan, we were playing Clemson, Tennessee. We're playing a more competitive schedule for us. Teams that we can compete with. Do you think that we should still throw in one of those big schools as a money game, that we need that? Or
look, as long as the athletic department is still $45 million in debt, yeah, you do need that. Yeah. I don't think there's any question.
I agree.
And the number, by the way, is that the number, Joe?
It was something crazy. I don't remember. It
was bad, yeah.
Yeah, it was $50-something million.
Phil got mad at me for saying that, but yes, it was. I knew we were at a deficit, and that's why I was wondering, because that's how we would get out of it. We were playing so many of those tough teams. Like that one year, we played Clemson, we played Michigan. I mean, we played a lot of those big schools, and that funds everything. You get millions of dollars to go get cream.
Well, and one of the reasons that the football program, to go off base before we get back to the schedule, one of the things that why the football program was able to get success at the beginning of the D1 era, I think there were three factors. I think number one was and get the fan base involved. Number one was you played a wide open offense. It wasn't ground and pound. With Danny, you scored 30-something points a game.
Absolutely.
And number two, because of the success of the basketball programs who were bringing in money at that time, you didn't have to go get your ass kicked for $500,000. So you didn't. That 2003, that 2003 team, they didn't play Michigan or Tennessee or Ohio
we played
State or many of
NC
those.
State and Virginia Tech, and BC.
Virginia Tech was going to be a conference team.
Yeah, because we entered the Big East early in 2004. Right.
So you look at next week.
Yeah.
Let's go quickly because I got to go soon. You look at next year's schedule. Central Connecticut at home.
Yeah.
At Syracuse. At Delaware.
Ooh, Delaware is fun.
Versus Ball State. At Buffalo. I can't even make out who that mascot is. Rice.
UAB, we got again.
UMass at home and at BC. You know what? That's a 9-win schedule.
Wow.
9 wins.
That's a 9-win schedule. The problem going to be here's what I think, and I might be totally wrong, but the problem's going to be if you keep giving the home fans an unappetizing schedule. I don't care how good you are; they're not going to go out of their way to show up.
Yeah,
and they haven't. I completely agree. I mean, they've tried to fill the rent several times.
There's a stadium on campus, they would, no matter what.
Oh,
yeah, but that's never going to happen.
That's never going to happen. Well,
it's a mistake.
Oh, it was a huge mistake. It was a huge mistake. But at the time, when they got the land for free from Pratt and Whitney,
that makes sense.
And
it made financial sense.
Yes, right. It didn't make practical sense. It made financial sense.
It did. Well, I have to say thank you both, Jamar, Joe, for coming on and talking some football. We are so proud that we at least won 9 games for the first time in 2010 and in the bowl game, and we hope that we can continue to build on that momentum. And again, www.bleedingblueforgood.org. Go and donate so we can continue to bring kids in from the transfer portal and keep the kids we have. That's the biggest thing. We gotta try to help Mike out.
That's the quote. That's the quote. Keep our kids and
keep our kids here.
It's true.
It's true. Money, keep them here.
We got to keep him here. So for the best of the best, the voice of the Huskies, Joe D. Thank you again for coming on Husky Huddle and not having a coronary putting up with me 2 days in a row.
I'm going to go drink heavily after dealing with you for 2 days.
He's not lying. And former defensive end and defensive MVP, Jamar Wilkins, linebacker, defensive end.
When basketball is good, football is good.
We had a blast hanging out.
Good time to be a Husky.
Jamar, you're great, man. Loved calling your games. Glad to see you're doing so well. You are a tremendous success story, my friend.
Thank you. It was fun. It was fun watching the bowl game because it reminded me of when I went out. Not that team. That win reminded me of Cully's Motor City Bowl. So kind of down the dumps, the 1-11 season from 2001, the kind of regrouping, and then kind of getting the 9-win season. So hopefully we can turn it around and have success the rest of the decade. But Nice talking to everybody. Schuman, good to see you. I got to make a trip. We got to connect in person.
Our kids are the same age. You know that, right?
Huh?
Our kids are the same age, same grade.
Yeah. We got to get a monster flag football.
And Jamar,
you play tackle though. Yours play tackle, right?
Yeah, they play. But I still like flag because just more fun.
You got to help me.
It's helmet with legs. It's electric football with 3rd and 4th grade football. It's electric football. It's just this. It's this. I like flag running around. But yeah,
because the guys want to do something for February. They're playing an event, like in Boston again. They want to do.
I'm ready. I'll be ready for the Big East.
I don't know how I got in charge of this, but they said they want an event in February. Yeah. So
I got wrestling season and coaching 3rd and 4th grade basketball.
Okay.
So
Cully, what you should do?
Yes.
Cully, what you should do is get it involved. Not that you're going to get a lot of tickets, but with the Big East tournament.
Oh, okay. That's true. I could ask Phil about that. They would do that. They probably would do that. That would be in March. Oh, all right. I appreciate that advice. Thank you, Joe.
My suggestion.
So that was Joe's suggestion also for Coach Schuman, the next big influencer, Coach Schuman Sports and Entertainment YouTube channel for the best coverage of the UConn Huskies and more, and sports and politics.
How many subscribers now?
We're up to 1.08?
You said 1.8 million yesterday.
1.11 million.
I lie, Joe. I always lie.
Pay the bot. Get the bots.
So for that, this has been Husky Huddle. I'm Steve Cully, the best podcast host in the known universe. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges and throw them back at life.